Hello, Bulldog parents. This is Christy Kleppe, Associate Principal, as well as Joy Kelly, Associate Principal. And in this video today, we would just like to share a little bit of information with you on how you can restrict or put in some parent controls on the iPad device at home with students. As we've talked to you about through Bet Parent Pride, some students are able to manage themselves very well, while other students have a little bit more difficulty and get a little wrapped up into some of the extracurricular things that you can do on the device. So for students who need to keep it pretty restricted to academic content, I want to show you a little bit about some parent controls that you can do to help support them in this situation. So what I'm going to show you is how you can set restrictions, some different parent controls on some of the different apps of the device. So in order to do this, if within your iPad, if you go to the icon Settings and you select Settings, over on the left hand side, if you scroll down, you're going to want to go down to the General tab. Under the General tab, you'll have a lot of different listings, but you're going to want to scroll down to the bottom where you see Restrictions. If you click on Restrictions, it gives you several different options here, but what you're going to want to do first is you're going to want to enable restrictions. The thing that you want to keep in mind when you enable restrictions is that it will ask you to set a passcode. It's really important that these restrictions are removed before they come to school the very next day or removed at the end of the time period. Otherwise, students may not be able to access content they need for use in the classroom. So it'll have you enter the passcode twice. And of course, it'll be a passcode you will want to set and obviously not give to your student. Once you have set in a passcode, you can see a listing of the different options of things that you can restrict within the device. So the first thing I want you to be aware of is all of the different apps that are located at the top. So you can restrict access to certain applications and different features of the device. So as you can see up here at the top, Safari being the internet, camera usage, the FaceTime, using the iTunes Store, which allows them to download other apps or games, music, etc. The bookstore, you can restrict them from installing apps, deleting apps, certain in-app purchases, Siri, and CarPlay. So those are some different options. So if while they're working on their homework, you did not want them to be able to do anything with apps or maybe use the camera, internet, vice versa, you could come in here and restrict those, and they would have to ask permission to use certain apps if they needed to for their homework. So those are some certain applications and features that you can restrict access to. So let's just say that I restrict access to the camera. Maybe I'll do the iTunes Store and the ability to install apps, and maybe the CarPlay. So what will happen by restricting those items, when you go back out and your student tries to use these devices, so if I go through and search for the camera app, you're going to see as I type in camera, it doesn't come up as an option for me to click on. So it acts as if the camera is not even on the iPad. Another option would be, what you'll see is the app I used to have, so like Safari, I don't have blocked. So right down here at the bottom, if I click on Safari, it opens up Safari. So what you could do, if you go back into settings, you're going to see if I go into restrictions, I'll have to put in the passcode. If I go in here and restrict Safari as well, and then go back into this, you're going to see Safari no longer shows up down in the gray area in the bottom of my device. So that app's not available for the student during that time. Things to be aware of, some of their textbooks, they do need the internet browser to do that. So those are some things you'll want to communicate with the student on what their needs are. So I'm going to go back into settings, go back into my restrictions, and put in my passcode. And I'm going to go ahead and turn these back on the way I had it before. When I talked about disabling restrictions, so that way they have access to the information they need at school, all you would need to do is click on Disable Restrictions. It'll ask you for the passcode, and then basically everything goes back to the original setup. Some other thing in restrictions I want you to be aware of, if I go back to Enable, put in a passcode, which again you'll have to put it in twice. Down here at the bottom, you can allow certain content. So just like your internet at home, you could go through here and you could block. So you can see ratings. I'm going to use the United States ratings. And then you can see over music, podcasts, and iTunes, I could go in and I could change that and change that rating. Okay? TV shows, same option. You could go in for TV shows and you could select, I just want PG, and so on for your restrictions. Websites, same as, you can limit adult content, only allow specific websites, which would be a good thing for textbook purposes. Right now, they're set at all websites. Then you also see some privacy locations. Those will be some things to keep in mind, that you can change some of that. Calendars, reminders, their Twitter, Facebook, and so on. Just to give you an idea on Facebook, if I go into Facebook, basically there are certain apps that will allow access to these apps. So you could allow changes or don't allow changes, which would lock certain settings into those apps. So again, this just shows you some ways where you can actually go in and restrict some of the content if you feel your student maybe is doing too much casual time or maybe using the device inappropriately. A couple other things that I just want to show you is also under the General tab, if you go into, I'm going to shut off my restrictions here. Okay. Accessibility. So it's still under the General tab. All the way at the top, if you go to Accessibility, under Accessibility, you can scroll down to where it says Guided Access. Guided access will allow a parent or an educator, if this is turned on, you can set a passcode, which you can actually lock them into certain things on the web. So I've set in a passcode. So what I can show you with this is if I go into the internet, and let's just say I go to a website that I want them to use, or let's say it's their textbook website. Okay, so using this website, but I don't want them to be able to hit plus and add a tab and say go to Twitter or Facebook or other thing that they're gonna go back and forth from. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna triple click the home button, and you see this guided access screen appears. And what that allows me to do is I can circle things on the page, which will block them from being able to do that. And then it'll ask you for a passcode to shut it off. So you can see this is the screen that appears. So I'm just going to show you this here briefly. The Safari option, you can see the motion, the touch, and certain hardware buttons. So those are the things you can turn on and off. So you can see up here where it has a gray X, you can circle things. So like I don't want them to be able to use the plus sign, so I just put a gray box over that. Maybe I don't want them to use, so you just have to expand this to things you don't want them to use. Okay, so I have those two gray circles up here at the top. So if I hit resume now and I try to tap anything in those gray spots, it's not allowing me to add any more things or tabs to search other sites on the website. Okay, so at first I kind of paused there so you couldn't see how that's working, so I'm going to go through that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my settings. So here's my settings. It was under the General tab. If you go to Accessibility, you scroll down, and here's Guided Access. Under Guided Access, you can set a passcode, and then have your student go into the app or go into something they want to use. So maybe something they're going to use is their Evernote app. So I'm going to show you this for example. So this might be a web-based app that they're able to take different notes on. And so what you're going to see is I'm going to go ahead and triple click, which means I'm hitting the circle home button 3 times, and it enables guided access. Okay. So then what I can do is I put in that passcode, and then you can see the gray box here up in the right hand side. I have that over, okay, other options. Let's say I don't want them to be able to use anything up at the top. I can gray that whole area. So you can see the whole gray box at the top, and then hit resume, and then what happens is they're pretty much locked into this app. Okay, they can't hit anything at the top in the gray area. They could add a new note because I didn't lock that, so they'd be able to add a new note and start typing if need be. And then if they try to get out of this app by pushing the home button, they cannot get out of the app without clicking it 3 times and then you putting in the passcode. And once you put in the passcode, it takes them out of the app. Now they can go home. And now they'll be able to do some other things within the app. Okay, so that shows you a little bit about restrictions and guided access. Last thing I want to show you, it's really important that these students don't take these devices in their bedroom at night. Also very important that you set kind of a homework area for them so you can monitor. Students will tend to multitask, which is really focus shifting, where they're not putting 100% effort into their work. One thing to briefly monitor what they're doing is at any time if you triple click or you double click the home button, anything that they've been on will pop up in this format. So you can see I was on Evernote here. So you can scroll through here and see what things they have been on. As long as this is cleared out before they start homework, everything that they have been on will pop up on the screen. And then to basically close them out, you just use your finger and you slide up to close out of these devices. You can use your thumb, one slide, pushing them towards the top of the screen, and they would close out of this app. So you really want them to do this process before they start homework. So you can see now the only screen available is my home screen app screen. So as I'm doing homework, if I open up my Evernote, do some work in there, I want to multitask and I decide to go in and open up my Twitter account, and then I see you coming and I go back to my textbook. If you briefly just double click, you can see what they have open, and you can see that I've gone from Evernote to Twitter and I've been using my Twitter account. Okay, so that's when you may need to go in and block those if they're not, focusing on their homework at that time. So I hope you find this video informational and some step-by-step process how to go in and restrict the device if need to. Hopefully over time students will learn to manage it and use it productively, but we will have to help them along the way. Thanks so much.